You are listening to She Rebel Radio. I'm Lulu Minns.
And I'm Mary Lobo. Today we're talking about shifting from lack to abundance, and you can download Lulu's free toolkit that goes along with this series.
It's nearly the end of the year and we're hitting the colder months here in the Northern Hemisphere. And that means we can have a really complex relationship between lack and abundance. The abundance of summer has gone, our tax bills are due, Christmas is expensive, clients can spend less, but Christmas really encourages us to be excessive and abundant with food and gifts and all of that good stuff. How you doing, Mary? Where's your pendulum swinging with lack to abundance?
I'm in a bit of a lack space at the moment, Lulu, which isn't great, but I'm fighting it. And definitely, I think that this time of year sort of it makes it feel so much worse because it's cold, it's dark, it's now icy, just everything feels more uncomfortable. And it can just make that sensation much worse.
Yeah, because winter, it's like having a double whammy of winter on the inside and the outside if you're feeling that lack. And
Yeah.
then, all the plants. Only last night I bought in all my succulents from the roof terrace because of the ice. They can't stay outside because
Oh,
they'll
yeah.
die out there.
That is not suitable weather for them.
No, it is not. So I've bought them in and I felt that real winter. It's really sparse out on the roof terrace. There's nothing
Mm,
flowering out there.
and it's just the frost, and now we're looking at snow at some point, aren't we? Parts of the UK already have snow, so it's just, yeah, it's there's been a real shift, hasn't there? That's it. It's almost like we're heading into winter.
Yeah, and I had the real holiday blues as I shared last week on the podcast that I'd got back from Morocco and it took me ages to shift out. It was almost out of that season because it was nice and warm there and here not
Mm.
so much. How would you describe the feeling of lack?
It either feels like something's missing or something's been taken away.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, something's missing or taking away. And yeah,
Mm,
it's lack is the state of being without or not having something, so it definitely
yeah.
represents an absence, a scarcity, a sparseness. As I said, like my roof terrace is sparse, but I love that in terms of, well, I don't love it, who loves lack, but missing something or it's been even taken away, so we've had it and it's gone,
Which I
which,
think is worse.
yeah, why is it worse? I agree, but
Yeah, because you have experienced the comfort of whatever the thing is that you no longer have. So be it money, you might have had at one point a lot of money and been frivolous, or just been a bit of a spendthrift and not really considered consequences. And then suddenly, when that all gets taken away, and you're like counting the pennies and thinking, I can't go to that shop, or I have to go divert all over this way to get my petrol because I just need to save those pennies. It's such a huge shift, one from freedom to restriction.
mm, and
Really
then
scary.
and then lack kind of perpetuates lack. And
Yeah.
when we think about our ancestors and those who came before us as well, and even ourselves, something I've noticed over the last couple of years with the cost of living crisis and how much it costs to put your heating on now, that now I just don't put it
Mm.
on willy-nilly like we did in the 80s. Like I remember how cold it was in the
Mm.
morning in the 80s. And then
Mm.
we went through this phase where you could just have the heating on, it didn't cost that much. And we're kind of back into having to be, missing it at times and being a bit cold and using a heated blanket.
Yes. And putting on another jumper, as your mum would say.
Yes, I used to hate it when my mum said that.
Put on another jumper, and now you're just like, right, scarf, gloves in the house.
Yeah, yeah. And we used to have stew for 3 days in a row in the 80s when my parents were feeling the lack and scarcity of starting their own business. And I would pick out all the potatoes because I didn't like any of the other veg in there.
Yeah, and that's the best bit for you need that stodge, don't you, as well?
Yeah, yeah, you do. You do. And lack can show up in so many ways. That not having enough money is obviously the obvious one that we were just talking about. And I think everyone's felt the pinch with the cost of living. And we're all anticipating what's going to happen in the new tax year. I think council tax is going up, blah, blah. But then
Mm,
we've, have the not enough time. I've worked with clients on that one. That's a massive one. Not enough health and even ourselves not being enough. And I'd love to explore more of that today
mm,
because I think that's a pressure that we as women really understand, and it's
yeah.
a complexity and a contradiction that we face quite often, don't you think?
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of, in the Barbie movie,
Yeah, I
the
love that
actress
movie.
America Ferrera, sorry, she has that monologue,
Yeah.
Impossible to be a woman.
Yes, yeah, that's like sums
Let
up.
me just, yeah, let me look
You're
it
gonna look it
up.
up.
Yeah, oh, hang on, here it is, here it is. It kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. And it goes on from there, but that's just the opening. Um,
Yeah. I,
yeah,
I
that
I love the last two
resonates.
sentences of that because I remember Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City. I don't know what it was for, but she had a similar of the like, you know, um, don't be fat, but don't be too thin. You look anorexic, and be sexy, but not sexy enough. But this one, I
Yeah.
love that we've got the asking for money, got
Mm,
to have it, but don't ask for it because it's crass if you're a woman, and you have to
mm.
lead, but don't, you've got to, you can't squash other people's ideas. I think that really sums up some of the complexity that women face running businesses and being in positions of leadership.
Yeah, and ironically, I don't think men have that. Like, they don't have that push-pull, do they? Like, if
No,
they want to ask for money, they'll ask for money. If they want to lead, they'll lead, and they'll squash other people's ideas. It's only us, isn't it? It's only women that like you can do one thing, but then it can't impact something else. But that only applies to women.
yeah, 100%. And do you know what? I was at an event, it was about a month ago now. And, we were summarizing in our breakout tables about what people were saying on the stage. And literally, two guys, one of them literally said, "Oh, like you said," to the other guy. And it was the thing that I'd said. So, men, it's like, and not all men, but that, you know, unconscious
Mm,
bias that they have to attribute an idea to another man. It's like they squash our ideas or our comments all the time. And once you
yeah.
see that, you can't unsee it.
And I hope that you got up and said something. I'm sure you did.
I did. No, I don't think I did actually. I think I just came out with another smart ass comment to remind them who the smartest lady was at the table, the smartest person at the table. Particularly with the topic at hand, it's very relevant to my background with policing and all of
Mm,
that kind of stuff. So, yeah, and this complexity. I love that Denise Duffield Thomas in her book Get Rich Lucky Bitch, and we're going to talk about abundance in a moment. But she talks about us as women, and it might be putting us in a you know all in the same bucket, but there are more complexities around us asking for money. And some days when we're not feeling good
mm,
about ourselves and we're feeling fat or whatever, we don't want to go on stage and, do a big
mm.
event. That might not be your thing anyway. But I think that's quite true. Whereas again, men won't think so much about whether they deserve it.
I don't think that crosses their mind at all. In fact, I think they probably just think they do deserve it because
Mm,
that's how they've been brought up.
yeah.
I think it's us women that have been brought up to believe that maybe we're just not good enough. I don't think that would even enter a man's psyche, to be honest.
No, and men are taught to be someone and women are taught to serve someone. So
Yeah.
unless we're kind of helping or serving in some way, I'm always super grateful with, I grew up on market stalls with both my parents asking for money and that hustle and bustle. So I'm
Mm,
quite comfortable with it than a lot of other people who leave a more corporate career and then start their own business. I've worked with clients previously who are very uncomfortable even talking about money because they've worked in HR or, they've never had
yeah.
to have that client facing asking for money. So I am
And there's a
grateful
lot of
for
shame around money, isn't there? And then that goes back to like money stories and what do you feel shameful about and why do you think that you can't earn X amount and why do you always think that your salary should be capped or that you only deserve to earn a certain amount? It's deeply complex and a lot of it goes back to childhood.
yeah, and this really strong narrative that women are less than and inferior to. And as we're recording this in November, that there's lots of stats out there at the moment around the beginning of November, women in corporate positions stop being paid because they're paid that, 20-30% less than their male
Oh, right. So
counterparts.
it's
So
like you stopping working in November.
yeah, they might as well just take the time off if you were paid the same as men, which is
Mm,
just horrifying.
mm,
And we are still there. And one of the ways that I wanted to share with you, one of the ways, because a lack and abundance is about more than money. And I
mm,
noticed this year I was going into lack when I had a health issue that cropped up that I've mentioned previously on the podcast. I decided to do a detox to
mm.
kickstart my immune system. And then I worked with a nutritionist. But when I was doing the detox, I was like, no wine, no chocolate, no bread, like all the things that we love.
No life.
No life, don't be sociable, like you can't go for lunch, you can't, and then no sugar, so I couldn't even go and have a soft drink in the
God,
majority of places. So
might as well
yeah,
not breathe.
I know, but I might do it again next April because I felt amazing. But I was in lack, focused so much on all the things that I couldn't have. As I said, don't drink the wine,
Yeah.
don't have the chocolate, don't have a
Mm,
soft drink,
mm.
don't have a sandwich. And when I started working with my nutritionist, it was a real mindset shift of actually focusing on the things that I could have,
Yeah, yeah.
which a random thing is eating spinach. I was eating spinach 3 times a day, and I actually love spinach. I like put it in my smoothies. I'm quite happy to have it all the time. So I was really focusing on the good stuff and still maintaining that, but I'm having the wine and the chocolate when I want it. But that just signifies a mindset shift instead of focusing on what you
Mm.
can't have and focusing more on more of the good stuff that you can have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is the only way to shift, isn't it? There is no alternative. The only way to shift from lack to abundance is look at what you do have, which is where the whole gratitude thing comes in. But it's like stop focusing on all the things you don't have. But it's so hard when you feel scared and you desperately want that thing that's lacking.
Mm. And then we focus on the I want and the gap between where you are and what it is that you want just seems to get bigger and bigger.
I know, yeah, exactly. And it seems further and further away. And then
Yeah.
sometimes there's no coming back from it, but it does shift eventually.
It's like the big film and book, The Secret, which came out in 2006. It was almost 20 years ago. Do you remember?
Yes, oh my God, I remember that. And I remember everyone going crazy for it because it was like this sort of new intel. You had to be on the inside to know this information. And it was like such a subtle shift, but if you knew how to do it, you sort of had the riches of the world. I remember.
So were you one of the early adopters? Because
I was.
were
I
you? I was
was.
totally late to the party.
Someone bought me the book, but I remember the film. And I remember someone saying, I'm going to send you this and you need to watch this. And sort of, this is the answer to life. And then watching it and feeling like you were in on something that nobody else knew about. Because back then, people didn't really talk about manifesting and um, it just wasn't sort of in the zeitgeist. So it did feel like it was some sort of special information that you were privy to.
Yeah, literally good marketing with The Secret. And when we go
Mm.
back to 2006, that's kind of the year before everyone kind of came on Facebook, didn't they? Particularly our generation, kind of
Yeah.
2007. So, we didn't have, or if it was out there, we weren't really using Instagram, and LinkedIn was like, a few people, a few professional people on there. So we didn't have the
Yeah.
sharing tools that we have now.
Yes, because I remember it was very much like you would hear it from someone else. someone would say, "Have you read this or have you seen this?" And then they would give you access to it, like give you the link or whatever. But it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't open to everybody.
Yeah, I love that. So it's like a real secret being shared. And I was
Yes.
in the totally wrong place as a criminal defense lawyer, working all the hours. Funnily enough, no one in the cells of a courtroom, or we weren't whispering to each other about the secret in criminal litigation. And we would have thought, I think, what a load of tosh and rubbish. I would have totally dismissed it. And I remember one of my colleagues used to do vision boards, and I was like, what are you doing that for? And I was, if someone had said to me, you should get a life coach or career coach when I was stuck, I would have gone, what am I going to do that for? Because that's kind of where
Yeah.
I was at. And I didn't actually read it until 2014 or 15. I mean, I watched the film, I think.
Oh, right. So you were a late adopter.
Very late adopter. And then
Mm.
I used to manifest, like particularly in that first year, I manifested a laptop, a holiday, and I used to teach people 5 steps to manifesting, which really works as well.
So you actually put it into action.
I did, I did. I am
Mm.
an action taker, and
Mm.
I actually sent myself an email for this holiday that I have won.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and but I needed it. It was one of the real secrets of the secret, right? I'm going to share with you on this podcast is it's got to be a heart-based desire, because
Mm.
I've tried to manifest, after that more of that kind of like physical stuff, but it didn't happen. But I actually really, from my heart of hearts,
Mm.
needed that holiday. It was, a year after I'd left legal practice. I was, in the wrong business. I've been hooked up into like a marketing thing that I was hating. I was trying to run a dating business. Like, so I really needed this time out. And
That's another story.
it is a whole other story. And, but it wasn't from an ego perspective that I wanted the holiday, if that makes sense.
No, you just felt that you deserved it for whatever reason and it should be yours, right? I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
No, it wasn't
Mm.
even I deserved it. It was I just desperately wanted time away from my everyday to try and get some clarity. And that really did help me.
So what did you do then? You entered the competition and then you sent yourself the winning email.
Yeah, I just sent myself a picture of it, the
Mm.
villa, and said, I have one.
Great.
And I felt the feeling. What was really important, that I noticed that I felt excited like
Mm.
24 hours before it happened. And that is one of the other, that's the real, as well as being a heart-based desire, is feeling the thing before you've actually received it.
Yeah, that's what everyone says, isn't it? It's not just thinking it. You have to actually feel it and create the feelings of. And yeah, everything that I've read about manifesting, it's not just simply, oh, I'm just going to think of this great outcome. It's about actually feeling what that would be like and living now as if it's already happened, which can be tricky.
Yeah, if it's something you've never had before, that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah,
So
but
what have you got any
that is the
positive?
secret, right? That is
Yeah,
it
that
in a
is the
nutshell.
secret. Have you got any positive stories about things that you've manifested?
Yeah, well, in last week's episode, I was talking to you about going to Paris,
Yes.
and I was at a crossroads in my life, and I didn't know where I should be, what I should do, and I went to bed that night, and I asked for a sign. In my mind, I was like, I need a sign on what I should do, and I dreamt about Paris, and I woke up the next day and said, I'm going to move to Paris. And I kid you not, this is like the benefit of youth. I went into work and booked a one-way ticket that day to Paris,
Amazing.
and
I
then the
love
rest
that.
fell into place.
Yeah. And that I love that, as that's almost like a bit like Gabby Bernstein's book, because we're looking for some female role models in this abundance story, because there's so many men that write about this stuff. Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins, Napoleon
Mm.
Hill. In The Universe Has Got Your Back, and she talks about signs when we're feeling stuck.
Mm.
And I
I
think that's
always look for signs. I always ask for signs.
yeah. Do you have a particular like animal? I was going to say mammal. It's like
Yeah.
a whale. As a sign for
No,
good luck,
no,
or
I just say a sign, any sign, and I know when it's the sign.
and you'll know what it is. I
Yeah, I
like
know
that.
what it is.
Yeah, I have seen 2 dragonflies like is a sign of good luck for me.
Oh, nice. And
Yeah, and
they're quite rare. I mean, of all the signs, Lulu, two dragonflies.
yeah,
It's
it's
like,
not one. It has to be
yes.
two.
And you also live in Brighton. It's not like
But
there's
then
not an abundance of dragonflies in Brighton.
no, but I did see two in Morocco the first time I went, which I was, I just started my coaching business at that point and I needed to know it was the right track. And I saw one and I was like, damn it, it has to be two. And then there was two that came in, and I do give myself um a little, it's not a cheat exactly, but even if I see two dragonflies, like two brooches or something, because there's lots
You
of,
know, I was going to say
yeah,
you have to because you can't rely on dragonflies. I think they've
turning
only
up in
got a
Brighton.
certain period of life.
No, but I think I used to draw them for my mum because she loves them. And so I think it's a sign of like one's her and one's me. And I found out down in Cornwall that they are in an abundance of dragonflies. And there's a particular place I go in Cornwall in
Ah,
August, September, which her birthday's in August and mine's September. So again,
oh, that's great. I love that.
it's a heart-based
You need to get a
sign.
little some dragonfly tattoos.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm a tattoo person. It's yeah, and talking about this abundance, we're talking about abundance means having something in large quantities, having more than we need, having
Mm,
plenty, that prosperity, those riches. And as I said, there's lots of American men that we could deem, maybe they've always been rich. Certainly Bob Proctor said, see yourself living in abundance and you will attract it. It works every time with
mm,
every person. I did a little
mm.
research on him and apparently he used to work in a factory. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but do you find sometimes some of the men that talk and write about this stuff we find harder to relate to as women?
Yes, I think so, because normally um, men have the ability to be abundant because they'll have other people doing things for them, which means that they're not having to do the child rearing, the um, maintaining a home.
Unpaid work.
Yeah, all of the unpaid domestic labor they're not doing. So therefore they've got more headspace, I guess, to um, be abundant and to bring all these other things into their life. They've got more time
Mm.
and they've got more access. So there, I would say that's where I would see that there's a disparity because if we're worrying about food on the table, clean house, all the ironing, all those other things that need to get done, that doesn't leave much space to allow for other things. Um, so yeah, I would agree with you there that as a woman, it doesn't always feel that it comes as easily.
No, and even Virginia Woolf talked about the prosperity and security of one sex versus the poverty and the insecurity of the other.
Yeah,
That was in A Room of Her Own, written in 1924. And we've seen some shifts, but not enough. And I
no.
just find it super aggravating with some of the older books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which I tried to read. And it's like it's all the he stuff. And I can put a little S in front of it, but I find it hard to relate to. But I found in a charity
Mm,
shop, and I remembered before this episode, Think and Grow Rich for Women by Sharon
yeah.
Lechter, and it's been authorized by the Napoleon Hill Foundation, so the same principles. And I started reading it years ago. I've not finished reading it, and yeah, it was a good reminder because I've seen it sat on my bookshelf.
That is interesting. So that is completely from a female perspective. And I guess why it would be different as a female.
Yeah.
Well, you need to read the book and let us know,
I
Lulu.
know, I do, I do. I can't believe. And when I found it in a charity shop, it's from an American library. Someone maybe stole it, but it's now in my possession.
And it found you, it arrived in your capable hands. So you now need to disseminate this information for all of us who won't be able to access it.
I know because it's probably not easy to get hold of. I might look it
No.
up on Amazon. But I find one way that women can really shift their relationship with abundance is when we see abundance about more than money.
Yes.
Are there any kind of ways that you've done that where you felt that's been quite successful? Because when we're focused on money or the lack thereof, we can just go down a real spiral that we talked about before on this series.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that we just need to look outside of ourselves. It's just about coming outside of your mind and just looking around. And I know that those are good exercises, especially when you're feeling really stressed, anxious. Um,
Can we
you've got
try? I've got an
spiraling
abundance
thoughts.
of cleaning to do.
Yeah.
Everyone's going, yuck. And the amount of women that tell me they listen to She Rebel Radio and they're cleaning, I'm like, hey, I'm not sure I like that. But anyway, carry on.
No, but yeah, that's right. Like I have an abundance of washing, but also just outside, with the leaves falling or whatever. Um, just looking around and seeing, or trees everywhere, or grass, or you just look around and you just see there is an abundance of whatever, birds flying in the sky. Um, it's about just coming out of your mind and looking directly around you and bringing yourself into the present moment.
Yeah, and we have such a close relationship with nature. I love that as a tip because it's definitely something that I did when I was in lack and scarcity, of starting a business, and it still comes in waves. And I really have to
Mm,
focus on the abundance. But I think nature, us being so closely related to it as women, and lots
mm,
of guys are too. But I used to live in Shoreham. Shoreham Beach is a beach that is much more seasonal than Brighton. Brighton's
mm.
just like
It's
Ibiza or
not got
what.
as many people.
No,
Less.
exactly, exactly. And they turn all the stones at a certain time of year, and then you get all the flora and fauna through. And particularly winter, as we started this episode, there's a sparseness. I remember just thinking, what an abundance of stones.
Yeah.
And it's
What do
so
you mean they
true.
turn
There's
the stones? I've not heard of that.
Yeah, they every January, they bring out
Hmm.
diggers and turn the stones and change the
Oh,
kind of landscape. Yeah, they
wow.
must do it for environmental reasons. But yeah, because I was out walking so much, I'd really got to know that beach really intimately.
Mm,
At the time of the years of the year and what would happen, and then the flora
mm,
and fauna coming through, and then by August it's all died out, and
mm.
you know it's as the heat's kind of burnt everything out. So I think following the seasons is really helpful. And as we were
Yeah.
talking about lack and scarcity, more so for women with money, but also time as well, I often say to clients of
Yeah.
creating a little mantra, and I've done significant coaching with women around their lack of time and changing their narrative about that. Even though that's their
Mm,
reality, we have to change the
mm,
narrative first of, I'm getting better and better at creating more time for myself. I'm getting
mm.
better and better at creating more money for myself, or whatever
Yeah, that's really good.
whatever that looks like.
And as well, that's really it's positive, isn't it? As in it's saying it's about growing. You're growing with it. Rather than it just being an assumption like, oh, I'm going to have it, which for some people just doesn't sit right. But I get better and better, I think, is a mantra that would sit right with people because it's about growing into it, which feels a bit more comfortable, I think.
Yeah, it does, and there's no point in giving ourselves affirmations or mantras which are
That
mindful
don't
when your
that don't
body.
resonate.
No, but yeah, when you're arguing with it.
Mm.
Oh, I've got plenty and plenty of time. You're going, no, I freaking haven't. I haven't even got 5 minutes to myself. It's not gonna work. So we have to start small and think big. And the other one that I love to play is the game of plenty, which when you've spent some money, particularly if you're in lack, is to go, there's plenty more where that came from.
Oh yeah, I like that one. Ask and
That,
steal that one.
yeah, and that is a good one for Christmas spending, people.
Mm.
And to
Yeah.
give credit where credit is due, that comes from Abraham Hicks, who is the real secret of the secret, who
Mm.
really they do money rampages on YouTube. I sent you one before this
Yeah.
episode. How was that for you?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it that it built momentum and it's short, it's only 5 minutes, the one you sent me. And it's again, it's just that affirmations, but it's saying, um, I have money coming my way and I'm enjoying spending money and it's a great feeling and I'm really good at this. And it's sitting with it already in existence, but it's like it's motivational, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, and it's kind of shifting it to anticipation, and I'm excited to
Yeah.
receive it. And Yeah,
Yeah.
and they are the real secret of the secret. The rumor is that a lot of the content of the secret was actually from Abraham Hicks and their work, and they weren't really given the credit for it. I don't know if that's true, but for those of
Hmm.
you that, you know, are beyond the secret, that want to take, you know, things to a deeper level and seeing it on a more vibrational, heart-based level, which is
Mm.
essential, then I absolutely recommend a little bit of Abraham Hicks.
Yeah, and those rampages are so short, aren't they? I mean, you could just stick that on while you're getting ready.
Yeah, you don't need to meditate to it. That's the opposite. It's
No.
just it's having it on in the background.
Mm. And it is
So
very builds you up, doesn't it? At the end, you're like, yeah, come
yeah, it's like makes you
on.
feel more robust and,
Yes.
and ready. So
Which
are
is
we
what we
feeling
need.
a little bit more abundant as we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, I do.
Good. Me too. Me too. So, a reminder to our listeners that you can download the free toolkit that goes right along with this series. And as always, we're going to share our 2 journaling tools before we go. Mary?
So this week, I will be the woman who lets go of lack. And I'm going to do this by accepting where I am, accepting what the lack is in my life, and looking around me for all the things that are in abundance and changing, shifting my focus to all the things that I do have.
Mm. Yeah, you could have a little journaling tool like every day going, today I feel abundant about.
Yeah,
Try that for 30 days.
yeah.
It's my job to challenge. Um,
Yeah, thanks. Gone
challenge
from a week
Annika.
to a month. Cheers.
I know. Yeah, I don't want it more than a week. Um, so this week I will be the woman who chooses abundance. I will do this by a daily commitment to the money rampage because I've not done it for ages, and this is a really good
Hmm.
time of year to do it. So I'm going to do that for 30 days too.
Yeah,
And because I always challenge myself more, I'm going to read Think and Grow Rich for Women,
yeah.
and I'm going to read it by January the 1st. So
And
how
I'm going to
long?
make you feedback. There you go. I'm going to really, you challenge me. I'm going to challenge you, even though I've got feedback on that.
Oh dear. Okay. I'm going to get my highlighter out. I'm going to make notes and I'm going to give feedback. So amazing to speak to you, Mary. And thank you to
Thanks,
all our
Lulu.
listeners. You've been listening to She Rebel Radio with me, Lulu Mins.
And me, Mary Lobo. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you left us a review.
And perhaps you could share this episode with another amazing woman.